Okay, so this is my review of Untouchable, the new documentary on Hulu, all about the monster himself, Harvey Weinstein. Now, what's really weird about this documentary, just going a little backstory about it, is it premiered at Sundance Festival in January of this year, and it really got kind of shoved to the side with a lot of people paying attention to the Leaving Neverland documentary. You can go into any conspiracies you want about that and how Harvey Weinstein still has some control here and there to kind of push it away. And the weird thing about it premiering a couple nights ago on BBC Two. Why was it on BBC One? I mean, it got 1 million viewers, it said, the first night on BBC Two. It just seems kind of little hidden. And it's so important, this documentary, and it's kind of disappointing in that sense. And it's even weird that if you go on to Hulu's Twitter account, it's out today. I looked on Hulu's account. They're not tweeting about it. Hulu Doc's account is tweeting about it. This should be the primary thing on Hulu's site, so it seems like there's still fear about something like this, which is kind of sad and strange, and it's upsetting. But that's my thoughts on the whole release of this and why this seems like such a thing that's getting pushed to the side, but it should be up front and center and getting the same amount of press as something like Leaving Neverland or R. Kelly's story. Now, I think that this is a challenging one to review because there's a lot of stuff going on in this documentary, but at the same time, you feel like it's a little repetitive in parts. And I mean, if you're going in to watch this documentary, you have to be living under a rock if you don't know some of these stories already about Harvey Weinstein. It's just such a big news story, and this really started the Me Too movement. So what I thought was really good about it was the director here, Ursula Macfarlane, did a really good job of having kind of just a goal of where she was going with it. And as a documentary from top to beginning, I like she started with showing that he's been a predator since his early days and having that victim talk about it, to going to his most recent people he's affected, and showing that as much as he uses his power and just mogul, he also is just a predator deep down. It's in his blood. This guy is just a bad person. He's been doing it even before he had power. So it's just an unfortunate story about a man who was a evil person, a rapist, predator, and then he gets a position of power to really just push that vehicle even more and get away with it. And I thought the documentary did a great job of showing that. I also like the documentary let the victims just speak for themselves, and I like there wasn't some sort of like narrator here or just someone getting too much screen time. I think she balanced out well who got to speak here. And I thought it was really impressive that they actually got people who's worked with Harvey Weinstein to speak, but also to show some guilt and admit some regret. I thought that was really powerful stuff and helps get the discussion going and see that, okay, if they can admit it, this is a huge step in progression, and see what was wrong and what they did and kind of show other people that. And I thought that the story that they were showing here worked well, and how she went across this documentary with a clear vision, that it ended starting the Me Too movement, and that brought tears to my eyes. I think the whole nice feeling of these women speaking out at the end was really well done, and probably its most powerful scene, and kind of reminding you when that was all happening and how significant it was. I mean, we were all live during it when the Me Too movement was starting and Harvey Weinstein was finally getting his just desserts, but it highlighted it well in a documentary form. And I think it was smart that she went with more of these original first victims than going to more known actresses. And I think that really worked well too, because it was showing how it affected all different types of women as well, and they all had different stories but yet so similar, which was really powerful. I thought when that one victim was talking about when she was reading the New York Times article, that like, oh my god, she was like, this was my exact situation, I'm reading my story from other people. So it was a nice touch that like they felt like they got that justice over years of hiding and that intimidation, and it really showed well, which if you've watched my Handmaid's Tale reviews, we talk about Handmaid's Tale, the show. Even if you don't watch the show, that show does a really good job of showing you how people freeze in situations like that, how victims freeze and rape situations, and what it's really like. And that documentary did a good job of showing that, where one victim had mentioned that it was a freezing situation, like you see, and you shut down, your body shuts down. It's not this thing where, you know, a lot of times people just imagine rape, and like the girl was saying, like they think like, oh, kicking and screaming and pushing and that you're fighting this guy bigger and that, oh, they're physically intimidating you. Sometimes it's just a mental intimidation and you literally lock up and hope it just ends. And that will go away later, and it doesn't. And that's a sad thing, but I think the director did a really good job highlighting this. And also the editor here, whose name escapes me, but I think that he did a really good job at editing together in kind of a sync here, which is hard in documentaries, of what they were saying and how it all had the same message and didn't let one person go totally off bat of the vision this documentary had and kind of kept it together and found the right spots. But again, like any documentary, I feel like a lot of them are just a little too long. This still was only an hour, 38 minutes, but some parts did slow up a bit. And I'm not saying it in disrespect to what was being said. It's all important, but there was some redundancy here. And yes, there's an effect to make it show you like, no, like this happens to so many people. I understand that, but I think that there was still wanting more here, more into this, more insight into it. And I feel like this documentary, what it really did though is set up a really good base, because I think this wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be, but it was still really good, and that it's starting this convo even more now and giving it more light. And it's so important how they had that message too, where it's like, this is one guy down, the big monster, but it doesn't mean this is over. Like, there's so many people this is happening, and not just in the entertainment industry, all over, which is such a good point. And I think this kind of set that tone, but it didn't really get deep down. And I do wish they had gotten at least some bigger names to talk about this, and because they're hinting a lot in this documentary, just with the photos they're showing you subliminally of just like, I'm not saying they're part of it, but it makes you think, like seeing all these stars around him and, you know, people knowing about it. Like, yeah, a lot of people knew about this. You'd have to be an idiot to not just have heard rumors, and it's more of like people not wanting to go near those rumors because it's inconvenient to their story. So you see the black and whites of certain A-list celebrities, those pictures they showed around Harvey, and you just question a lot of it and who really knew what. They did a good job at that too. But I do wish some of the more bigger names, at least one of them they could have got, even like a Gwyneth Paltrow, to talk about this a bit would have been really significant and huge. Because unfortunately, if you don't have that, like we're seeing, the discussion is not taken as seriously. And that's such a sad thing to say, but it's true as you see how the reaction is. So I hope more people talk about this and push this. I thought the music was really good with the violins. It still sounded a lot like every documentary. I've heard that kind of music, but, you know, I think from an artistic standpoint, there still could have been more identity to this in its own identity than other documentaries. So it felt just kind of easy in some ways in how they formed it. And I thought it could have used a little more creative juices there. But that's, again, not a big complaint. It's just, I still see that, like, there's so much potential that's almost there. You're kind of waiting for it to take off, and it doesn't really, but it's super informative. Again, I like that it lets these victims talk themselves and lets them breathe. You don't feel like you're getting an agenda here. You get more of like, okay, this director wanted to tell a certain message about this, and it's how you take it, but they made it clear, and I like that. I like that it doesn't seem like it doesn't know where it's going, but that's different than having an agenda. Agenda is just like, you're not showing all the sides and seeing what really went on and hearing from the people who were actually in it. And she made sure to have those people talk, which was so important. And that's why it was so important. They had employees of Weinstein, they had friends of him from school, and they had the victims. So I didn't feel like I was getting lied to or cheated or some kind of weird thing was going on. It felt very honest, which I appreciate. And to review something like this again, it's so difficult because it's so important. It's so good. So I'm trying to review it just as a documentary as itself. And I think that it's such an interesting topic with this Harvey Weinstein thing. And it's so scary that you still feel like this man, this monster is out there and he's seeing this happen and somehow has power still to dig this down. You're not seeing any people with blue check marks tweeting about this documentary. And that's very strange, where you saw so many with Leaving Neverland. I'm not trying to compare to other stuff, but it does bring up some kind of discussion of like, why is this one not being talked about? And it's just like, I think people are still scared. So that's scary in its own right. But again, it's still effectively starting that conversation some more. And again, I think this is setting up for an even bigger, bolder documentary about this. But again, this is really good. I like that Hulu did this, and it's part of BBC production as well. So it's really BBC who made this. I just wish there was more of a push for it. And I still think it could have been a little more and a documentary like this to get the word out and get people to watch it just a little more its own identity and what's going to make someone go watch this who doesn't really even care about it but should. Why should they? So you got to push that more. I just wish there was that, but informational, it's great, and again, it's got a direct message here, good vision, I like it. So I'm going to give this documentary an 8.3. I think that's fair. I don't think it's the most riveting stuff. I don't think it was angled in a way that made you feel like you learned a lot more than you already knew from just reading about it. But it's a good base. It's a good setup for someone who's interested in it, who didn't know anything about it. And I think it's brave. And I appreciate that. And I thought it was still well done because, any documentary could just become a train wreck and lazy, and this didn't feel like that. Obviously, there was great research here, great subjects. And, I just think that the sky's the limit for this topic, and I think there will be even better documentaries or maybe a movie made about it. But I still think there's this fear of Harvey Weinstein out there, which is just scary. So let me know what you thought of this one down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. If it's the first time watching me, please subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews. And I do a bunch of movies. I do documentaries like this. I do interviews as well with the celebrities themselves, so you don't want to miss one of that. And please follow me at Steve Varley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of me. And I'll see you next time.